So I've got my presentation for tonight, and that is the safety and emission changes in the MGs. And they start as early as 1964. The big change comes in 1968. That's when a whole lot of stuff got changed. That's why they dropped the big Healy, because they didn't want to make the changes in the big Healy. They'd already run that model for so long that they didn't figure it was worth redoing it to meet the safety and emission standards, which is why they came out with the MGC. Then the next time, after 1968, that they did a real big heavy duty punch was the 74, well, really the 75 model year. So the safety and emissions came in at different times. One came in on the model year, that was the body. And then the other stuff came in on the calendar year, beginning 1975. So the safety and emission standards didn't parallel. In 1968, they did. They had a whole lot of stuff that happened. So I just want to go through each section of the cars and talk to you as best as I can about the changes that I know that were made. There's certainly more than I'm going to mention tonight. And if you think of one and you go, oh my gosh, you missed this great big important one or one that you know of, then put your hand up and I'll call on you and you can add in the one that you remember. Or sometimes there's questions. As far as the engine, there's no change in the engine. There's a valve timing change. I get into that in tuning, but the cam timing. But the engine itself is just a slow um, um, reduction in weight. The engine keeps getting better and better and better until by 1980, it's a really, really nice engine. It's lightweight, revs up real fast. It's a great engine, but there's nothing having to do with emissions or safety standards that change, except the engine mounts. So there's a bar up through about 1967 that holds the engine and gearbox from moving fore and aft. And then they dropped it off from about 68 through 74. Then beginning again in 74 and a half with a raised ride height, they put that bar back on a little differently, but still in the same place to keep the engine from moving fore and aft. They also put some uh, protectors on the front engine mounts so that if you're in a front end collision, the engine can't get slung out of the front of the car. It's stopped by these mounts. They're not necessary to reinstall because it has very little to do with anything. But that is one of the changes that was made in the ignition system, starting in 1968. The distributor changes almost every year, 68, 69, 70, 71, all the way up through about 77. I think 77 through about 80, it stays the same. I'm not sure 1980 if they changed the distributor yet again. And the reason they changed the distributor every year was because the emissions standards changed every year. And the easiest way to make the engine meet emission standards is to fiddle with the timing so that the distributor changes every year, which is why you cannot take a distributor out of I don't know, a 1974 and put it into a 1967 or a 1980 without knowing what you're doing because of the way the vacuum hooks up and because of the advance curve. Cooling system doesn't change having to do with safety or emissions. It does change in 1977. It's a sealed system, and any expansion that goes on goes into the expansion tank. The expansion tank is not a new idea. They did that on Austin Americas, which are the MG 1100, 1300 replacements that came in, and they did it on the MGCs. But on the MGBs, they added that expansion chamber off to the side so that the cooling system in the car always remains full. It isn't necessary. but it's a change that was made. I want to say there's no changes in the fuel system. It's the same tank. Um, it's the same with the exception of the evaporative loss control system. But the fuel pump stays the same. We had a filter somewhere along the line around 71, maybe 72. We had a filter, but that has nothing to do with safety or emissions. Clutch stays the same clutch, same pieces from 1963 through 1980. The gearbox, of course, makes a massive change in 1968 and becomes a wonderful gearbox, all synchro that hardly ever fails. There's so many of these out there that when someone wants to buy one, you shouldn't have to pay more than $50 for it. And if you do find one, if you do have one, it has no other function other than scrap metal or a boat anchor or something or other. You can't, there's everyone who's in the trade has got extra all synchro gearboxes. They're so durable, but there's nothing having to do with safety or emissions that change. Drive shaft stays the same. The rear axle and suspension, of course, in 1974 and a half, which is the 1975 model year, the whole car is raised. And they do that by moving the clips that hold the front of the leaf springs on the bottom of the car. And instead of being close to the body, they push it away from the body. Therefore, the body rides higher on the rear axle than the earlier ones do. This was all done because the cars had to have a certain ride height so that the bumpers would meet at the right spot. There had to be a standardization. The federal government wanted a standardization of the bumpers so that bumper would hit bumper. Um, the front suspension, again, it's the same thing. There are no changes in the whole system. In 1963 fits in 1980, most of the pieces, except for the fact that the front cross member changes, and again, the body is lifted up off the wheels a little further than it was originally to get that ride height. The steering changes a lot in 1968. Prior to that, there's a shaft, piece of pipe that goes from the center of the wheel all the way down to the front. If you're in a front end collision and your sternum hits that steering column, it's brutal. So they made the inner steering column with a shear pin in it, just a nylon shear pin, and then the outside was a matrix, a web, and I had one in the picture that I sent out, which had been collapsed. So the inner column collapses, the outer column crumples up. It's designed to crumple. So that was introduced in 1968. And although there's a couple of changes after that, the whole concept remains the same. It's got a collapsible column. Shock absorbers, absolutely the same thing. The brakes, the brakes change a lot. In 1968, we've got a dual circuit brakes. So the front circuit is separated from the rear circuit. Now, because two-thirds of the braking is done at the front of the car and only one-third at the rear, you can lose your rear brakes. Most often they freeze up. You just wouldn't you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know because the car dives a little bit more, but you might not even notice it except in the most emergency of all situations. But the hydraulic circuits are separate, and they're plumbed through a shuttle valve. That shuttle valve has nothing to do with proportioning. There are different cars that have proportioning valves, all kinds of stuff in it. Our car, that shuttle valve, 1968 through 1964, the brass one, Midgets, MGBs, only has a little piston in it that moves back and forth if there's a difference in hydraulic pressure between the front and rear circuits. If there is a difference in pressure, then that shuttle valve moves and it trips a switch. And the red light on the dash that you didn't notice prior to this illuminates. But usually your foot is all but on the floor when by the time this light comes on. So to make sure that the light works, to make sure that that light works, there's a push button on it, 1968 through 1973, and you're supposed to push it every now and then. I pushed one today on a 73. It lit up. That tells you that the electrics are working. But the government, by 1974, no longer trusted you to press that button. So now, when you turn the car over to start, turn the key all the way over to energize the starter motor, there's a diode in the circuit, and that lights up the brake warning light. So that when you're starting up, the light comes on, you go, yes, it does work. But of course, if it doesn't come on, you probably wouldn't notice. By 1977, there's also a switch on the handbrake. I don't know if that was demanded by the federal government or not, but that lets you know that the handbrake is up. So if you leave the handbrake on and start driving, unfortunately, because of the wiring, the way it's done, if the diode, which runs the handbrake, goes continuous, a diode only lets electricity go through in one direction, so it can fail in two ways. Doesn't allow electricity to go through in either way, or in this case I'm about to explain, electricity can go either way in it. So if you pull up on the handbrake, the starter motor runs. Not a very good safety device. But that's only 77 through 80. There are a lot of changes in the electrics. One of them is the transmission controlled spark advance. We talked about that last week. That's 1977 through 1980. That opens the solenoid in fourth gear only and allows the distributor to use manifold vacuum in fourth gear only for deceleration, most likely. And so I've seen those hooked up, interestingly, a couple different ways. First of all, if you're sitting at the light and you're waiting for the light to change, you're sitting at a stop sign, you're in stop-start traffic, and your foot's on the clutch, which it should never be, but it's on your foot's on the clutch, and you're fiddling around with a gear lever, and you put it in one, two, three, you pull it into fourth, the RPMs jump 200-300 RPM. Like, what's going on here? It's because that valve is opened and allows manifold vacuum to get from the manifold to the distributor, advances the spark, car runs better. Anyway, and then one time I saw it hooked up, that solenoid, which is on the brake master cylinder box, I saw it hooked up through the wipers so that not only was there a washer pump in the circuit, but also this TCSA switch, transmission controlled spark advance, so that the squirters would only work when you were in fourth gear. I asked the guy when he came in and I looked at how it was plumbed. I said, "Your squirters only work in fourth gear?" And he looked at me and he says, "How do you know?" I said, "Oh man, this is a bizarre one." Um, the dashboard, we went from the knobs, we went from those knobs that would perforate your skull. I don't know how many other people got to see the Ohio movie during Driver's Ed of some poor girl with switches embedded in her brain when she hit the dashboard far too quickly. But to prevent that from happening, the federal government made all the switches rocker switches, so that there's nothing protruding from the dash. And of course, they made the dash a padded dash in 1968. You hit that fast enough, and it's brutal, but not as brutal as a steel dash. So that padded dash was added in 68 as part of the safety items. The wheels and tires they decided that spinners were dangerous. Who was the actress that got her scarf caught in a spinner? Um,
The
1929.
dancer, Isadora Duncan.
Yeah, the dancer, Isadora Duncan. Yes. Yeah, it tightened up around her neck real fast. So anyway, maybe it was from that. But the German delivery MGAs had octagon spinners. So it wasn't just the federal our federal government. There were other governments that were driving this kind of stuff too. I just maybe they'd seen the James Bond Goldfinger and seen the half shaft come out with a spinner and tear up the other guy's wheels. I don't know, but it's a spinner. A spinner isn't a very dangerous item, and if they are, then why? If they are dangerous, then why do the Roots Group cars, Hillmans, Humbers, Sunbeams, why do they have three knockoff wings on theirs? Um, on the exterior of the body, of course, we talked about the raised ride height in 1974. In around 72, I'm just not sure. I was going off my memory tonight. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But around 1972, there's a reinforcement panel put on the inside of the door to help protect you in a side crash. The doors themselves, the latches change pretty early on, 1965, and they don't change after that. But they did put anti-burst devices, which is just a pin, but it's called an anti-burst pin on the doors, starting again around 1972 or so. The outside rear view mirrors were dealer installed, and those were all determined by the state in which you lived. By 1980, most of the states, I think, probably had the same kinds of rules. But prior to that, the mirrors could be located almost anywhere on the car. It depended on where the 18-year-old mechanic trainee drilled the hole at the dealer and installed the mirrors. The cars were not transported with mirrors for fear that they would suffer some kind of damage during that time. In 1969, two wipers, it was determined that two wipers were not enough to clear enough of the windscreen, so we went from two wipers to three. So that's the way you can often tell a rebodied MGB that's earlier than 1969 is that it comes punched for triple wipers, and so a lot of people just go ahead and put the triple wipers on, but that was introduced in 1969. That's how you can quickly tell on an MGC, which was only in production for 2 years. You can quickly tell that whether it's a 68 or a 69 just by looking at it. Unless, of course, it's a GT, and those have two wipers all the way through. Seatbelts were installed in 1964. That was the federal government. They decided that was a safety item. There were seatbelt fixtures on the MGAs, on the 62 MGAs. You can bolt into those. They're horribly placed. It doesn't help very much at all. There are better places to put the shoulder harness. But um, by 64, we had lap belts, and it wasn't until 1968 that we had over-the-shoulder belts. And remember on those that the shoulder belt went all the way across the back of the top of the car and into a bolt, chrome-headed bolt that sat just to the rear of the cockpit. So when you put up the top, you had to take the seat belt loose, put the top up, and then put it on underneath the top. And then when you put the top back down, then you had to disconnect the seat belt, store the top, and then put it across the back of the cockpit. So not much work to do there, and they fit. The positioning on them is very nice. It's a lot better than the ones that went on the wheel arch later on.
Hey, John, were you saying that those were standard or an option?
No, they're
That
standard.
really for
Yeah,
on in 68? Starting in
68,
68?
68 had cross the shoulder belts, didn't they?
No, I got a 71 and it didn't have anything back there. So I
Well,
haven't
yeah, but
read.
that's wrong. It did. It came with it. All car from 1964, all cars came with seat belts.
But I mean,
So,
I'm sorry, the shoulder belt.
right. I want to say that you had a shoulder belt from 68 onwards. I mean, I can easily be wrong. I really can.
Okay, thanks.
Um, then in 1973, the federal government, I don't know who makes all these rules, DOT, Department of Transportation, decided that they would not allow you to start the car until the seat belt was latched. So they had the seat belt interlock system. So that required a switch in the bottom of the seat that went continuous when you sat in it. It had a switch in the seatbelt receptacle that went continuous when you plugged the seatbelt in. So as long as the seatbelt was attached, if you were in the car, you could start the car. But you could start the car if you were not in the seat. And if you had a heavy bag of groceries on the passenger seat, the car wouldn't start. You had to belt the groceries in because it would close that switch on the bottom of the seat. The outcry, the outcry was so great, and this wasn't just MGs. This is Cadillacs. This is every car that was made. The federal government had misjudged the reaction of the public, and everyone went into the dealer and demanded that these. Not everyone. Many people went into the dealer and demanded that this thing be taken out. In addition to that, you've got four switches. You got a Pectron unit up behind the radio box. Bunch of connections. Things could and did go wrong, so that everything's hooked up and you turn the key switch, and car wouldn't start, not because the battery was dead or anything, but just because the circuit wasn't complete between the key switch and the starter motor. So we used to wire through those a lot when I had my shop. I would imagine that by now, almost all of them have been wired through and no longer operate. For tuning and emissions, there was a lot of stuff that happened. So beginning in 1964, on all the models, there's that Smith's PCV valve. Had a picture of one between two beautiful carburetors in the constant contact mailer that I sent out. So there's that Smith's PCV valve stayed there until 1968. In 1969, they changed the way that ventilation was done, and there are actually tubes on the carburetor and the front tappet inspection cover, MGB, MGC, Midget, they all then are piped into the carburetor, and that provides a bit of a draft and keeps fresh air moving through the inside of the engine and burns up any by taking it into the cylinders and combusting it, turning it into carbon dioxide and water. There was a smog pump installed in 1968, which did two things. I got to hit my mute all. I got some background noise here. There we go. The smog pump injected air all the time into the exhaust system just above the exhaust valves where the exhaust temperature is the highest. So if we've got any unburned gasoline in the exhaust, the air pump would push fresh air into it and help that combustion down the tailpipe. If the car was tuned real badly and there was a lot of extra unburned gasoline, or a leak in the exhaust, you could get a pop, 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 pop on deceleration as the unburned fuel actually combusts within the muffler system. That's what causes that popping. In addition, the air pump pushed air into the intake manifold under periods of high manifold depression. So when you're doing 60 miles an hour and you take your foot off the gas, the gulp valve would then open, and all this extra air would get pushed in, air, not air fuel, just air, would get pushed into the intake manifold and would help combust the unburned gasoline. This system was enhanced in 1975 in the California models when they put a catalytic converter on it. And then in 76 through 80, all the um, all the federal spec and the Canadian specs cars had catalytic converters on them. The catalytic converters, of course, sat right underneath the carburetors. The carburetors had a problem with a loose choke that would as it loosened, would allow the car to run rich, which would cause the catalytic converter to turn red hot. At the same time, if you were idling, gasoline would drip out of the automatic choke onto the catalytic converter. There were a lot of fires. It was a design flaw. There were a lot of fires, 75 through 1980. They got some of that sorted out, but the easiest way to get that sorted out is take that air pump off, and then there's no more extra air getting forced into the exhaust system. And the catalytic converter cannot convert unburned gasoline into carbon dioxide and water because there's not enough extra air. That in addition to that, there were also installed in the carburetor throttle discs on all the cars an overrun valve. By the time we hit 1975 and we've got a Stromberg carburetor on an MG Midget, it's no longer a valve in the throttle disc. Apparently, it was not enough room to do it, problems doing it. So there was a diaphragm on the carburetor itself that sensed manifold vacuum. And when the manifold vacuum got too high, it would open up a bypass around the throttle disc, just as 68 through 80 does on an MGB. Spring-loaded valve opens up and it slows deceleration. The more slowly you accelerate and the more slowly you decelerate, the cleaner the emissions are. So these are all devices to make the car put out less smog out of the back. In 1970, we pick up an evaporative loss control system. Prior to that, the carburetors, if they were to overflow, dumped on the ground, and the gasoline tank, as it inhaled and exhaled throughout the course of driving, whether you're parking on real hot asphalt in the middle of the summer and the gasoline expands and it's pushing air gas out of the top of the tank through a hole in the filler cap and polluting the atmosphere, or whether it was air going back into the tank to replace the gasoline which had been burned. All of that was going through that little vent hole on the gasoline tank, on the gasoline filler. In 1970, it changes. Now the gasoline filler is sealed. And the only way for air to get in or out of the tank is through the canister, which is at the right side of as you're looking at the back end of the car, the right side, that's the condensing canister to take fumes and condense them and let those run back into the tank, and the charcoal canister. So we pick up the charcoal canister one in 1970. Also hooked to that are the float bowls, because when you shut the car off and the under bonnet temperature skyrockets, the fuel in the float bowl expands and it pushes air fuel out of the top of the float bowls and gets in the atmosphere. And again, we've got unburned hydrocarbons, raw gasoline floating around in the atmosphere. To reduce all that, to eliminate all that, any air that goes in or out of the top of the float bowls, which is very little, and any air that goes in or out of the tank, depending on gasoline usage and temperature, all has to go through the charcoal canister. Then during operation, fresh air is drawn through the canister to pull the gasoline off the charcoal because it's been adsorbed onto the charcoal. It's just like fish charcoal. And that's drawn into the engine and then back out of the engine and burned up in the intake system. By 1978, we've got, at least by 78, we've got two charcoal canisters. So now it's even there's more chances of problems. Just two canisters to fail at some point. In 1973, we've got an anti-run-on valve. Actually, that this whole system is a great system to have in place. There's never a need to remove the evaporative loss control system or the positive crankcase ventilation system. Take the smog pump off, absolutely. But don't disturb the other two systems because they're just fine. They take no energy. They keep the air a little bit cleaner. And in the case of MGBs and midgets, 1973 onwards, when you turn the key off, if the system is working correctly, the car shuts down like that. It gets no more fuel. It starves for fuel. It does not diesel. Boom, boom. That's it. You're done. It's the engine is quiet. You can retrofit this onto earlier cars. I've done that before. Then the question is how to make it work because there's a circuit that goes hot when you turn the key off, the slate circuit. And so in the one car that we did, the guy was complaining, it said 69, thing dieseled horribly. I said, we can put an anti-run-on circuit on it, and since you don't have overdrive, we'll run the anti-run-on circuit from your overdrive switch on the steering column. Great. He used it all summer long. It was great. He'd flip that switch and then turn the key off. And he often didn't even have to turn the key off to get the engine to kill. The engine would kill when you operated the overdrive switch. But then the next spring he forgot he had it. He couldn't get the car started. Oh my gosh, a lot of fun. Anyway, that anti-run-on system 73 through 80 is a really nice system. It helps. It helps a whole lot. So they changed the production figures, the coding of the serial numbers. They changed those, I think, probably to conform with some American federal specifications, because the car that preceded the first 1968 was a GHN 3L something or other. And then in 1968, 1969, the serial number became GHN 4U, the U for the United States, 4 for the series. And then in 1970, it became GHN 5U A for 1970, B for 71, C for 72. And then it was followed, the six-digit number was followed by the letter G to let you know that it was an MG. Then in 1980, again, following some kind of federal mandate, I'm sure the serial numbers went from GHNs to GVVDJ2MG, and then the six-digit number. So that's just a quick overview. I've talked for an hour about the changes, and I know I've forgotten some stuff I didn't talk about when they added the safety lip on the disc wheel, which I think was probably probably at the introduction of the MGB over the 1962 MGA. Those didn't have a safety lip on them. And in extreme conditions going around a corner, you could run the tire off the rim if it was deflated to a certain point. After that point, the safety lip kept that from happening. I've never seen anyone do that in any case. That's what I've got to say. There's headrests. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that we can talk about. Anyway, if you've got some questions or some comments about safety or emissions, you're on board. Ask them now. Well, don't everybody talk at once.
John, what maintenance is required for charcoal canisters?
There's a fine wire mesh at the bottom that over a period of time fails, and the charcoal goes dances through the open cell foam which is in there and dances out into the bottom and dances into the bottom of the it dances into the anti-run-on valve. So if you just take you can only do this with the original ones. The replacement ones are sealed for life. But you can unscrew them, and there's a little triangle, circular thing with triangle tabs on it. You can pop that apart and put the charcoal canister on a cookie sheet when your wife isn't home, and put it outside in the sun. And after a little bit, all the gasoline will have evaporated. If you're in a hurry, you can hit it with a propane torch. But remember, it's just charcoal, and if you get it lit, it'll burn. It'll turn to ash. If you want to just change the charcoal, you can go to your aquarium shop and buy fish charcoal. That works just fine. And then if you got to make another filter screen at the bottom, and certainly the open cell foam, you can get that open cell foam that from the hardware store for it's an air conditioner use that allows air to pass through. So, but that's all. Just you take it apart. But
Hey, John,
this is like a
John,
grave. Just a sec. It's like a grave. Um, you take all the charcoal out and you put it back in, and there's too much. You can't get it. You can't pack all that charcoal back in there. They must have had some device to bring the push the charcoal down in there that we don't I don't have. Anyway,
hey, John, it's Gerard Denzler from Yardley, PA. How are you?
great.
Good. I got a quick question for you. It's regarding HIF carburetors
Sure.
and the emissions. I'm having vapor lock issues with my HIF, and like car was running really fine. It started up beautifully, drove for about a half an hour, parked the car for about 15 minutes, and then it was having problems starting. In the HIF carburetors, they have the temperature compensators inside the carburetor body.
Yes.
How much effect does that have as far as the mixture is concerned after the car is warm, like after it's been sitting with, after
So the failure to restart is a
running half
real
an
is a that
hour?
oh you're great.
And the reason why I'm asking, I lost you. I was being told that maybe using 100 low lead would not have the issue with the ethanol gasoline. Any comments about that?
Well, if you can find get if you got this problem, if you can find non-ethanol gasoline, then
Right.
your car will restart certainly more easily, because the alcohol in the gasoline allows it to boil at a much lower temperature than the gasoline by itself. And it's that boiling that screws up the mixture and makes it hard to start. So that's
What,
one
what
thing. Another,
what temperature would it actually be boiling at? Because I put a thermometer, like a digital thermometer, in the engine bay, and it was about 180 degrees in the engine bay when I stopped the car.
I should know this, and I don't know what the temperature is, but I know the net result of, because once you turn the car off, just as it takes a while for the car to increase in temperature, it
Right.
takes a while for it to decrease. And once you stop the cooling, the under bonnet temperature skyrockets. It just goes up. If
Right.
you wait
Right.
half an hour, starts easy. If you've only waited 5 minutes, it starts easy. There's a magic amount of time, just about the time it takes to get in the stop and rob and get some adult beverages and get back in the car. Some some
Exactly.
some people find it's if you just put your foot to the floor and crank at it, just start cranking at it and cranking and
Mhm.
cranking. The duty cycle on the starter motor is probably 30 seconds. So crank for 30 seconds, then wait, wait 15, 20 seconds and do it again. Some people find that works out okay. If you got two people there
Okay.
and you can lift the air piston by unscrewing the top of suction chambers and lifting the pistons, it'll start right up, which means that you're trying to start as too rich and you're leaning it out dramatically. If you wait, but the real trick is to get some other gasoline.
So John, the quick question
John, I have
that is how much of that is affected by the temperature compensators,
I
or
don't
is it
I
just
don't know. I don't know that.
okay?
I don't know the answer to that. And there's no other option anyway. I mean, there they are. So
Gotcha.
it's fine
Okay.
if you use on your phone. There's an app called Pure-Gas, and it'll tell you
Hmm.
where you can buy the non-ethanol gasoline. If you have to do it, you just have to
I
do it.
found some here.
Okay.
Yeah, I found some here in Pennsylvania, not too far, so I'm in good
Yeah.
shape.
Okay.
So, all
Okay. No.
right, thank you.
Next one up here is John.
Hi, John. Thank you for taking my question.
Yeah.
75 MGB, after 20 years of ownership, the car was popping on deacceleration. And from my experience with other MGs, it was the gulp valve. On the forum, someone said, check your air injectors. And to my surprise, one of my air injectors was clogged. And I was because this is the most well-behaved car I have ever owned. I mean, just wonderful little car. And I was surprised that something was actually clogged on it. What what would cause that air injector to get clogged like that?
Because it's constantly being all that exhaust gas is passing by it all the time. There's a one-way valve in the air system that's not supposed to allow air to get pushed back up into the system, but there's a lot of pressure there, a lot more pressure in the exhaust than there is from the air pump. So, and there's a lot of heat involved here.
Yeah.
So, and so what might have been happening is because not enough air was getting into the exhaust, and you've got air coming in some other way through the gulp valve or a leak in the
Yeah.
exhaust system itself, then you get the combustion that's happening farther down in the tailpipe and causing that pop, 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 pop.
So it took me hours because those air rails are really you can't buy them. So I had to clean it out with like a dental pick, and I got it fixed, and it went anti-seize, put it back together. The one-way valve, is that the check valve that's
Is-
on the?
Yeah, that's a check valve. Yeah.
All right. It appears that it must have gotten old or over 50 years. I've owned it for 20 years. I've never touched the gulp valve or that check valve. So I actually found a brand new air rail on eBay, and I'm going to put a new check valve on it and get that whole side of the system.
Okay.
So you mentioned earlier that to remove the air pump.
Oh yeah. Are you in a geographic location that demands you have the air pump?
No, not in Washington. We don't do smog checks in Washington
Okay.
anymore.
You'll be so much happier to get the smog pump out of there. So you take the air rail, the one you just purchased on eBay, take that back off, and use 7/16 20 Allen set screws. They fit right into the holes, and you don't even notice that anything's missing. Then around on the inlet side, you remove the gulp valve and the bracket, and there's a 90-degree fitting that goes into the center of the intake manifold. You grab that with a pair of pliers that might be loose right now, and you wiggle it a little bit, and it pops right out. Then tap that 1/4 inch NPT, National Pipe Thread, American Pipe Thread, and again use. I have Allen-driven 1/4 inch NPT plugs that screw right into the center of the intake manifold, and you just don't even see that anything's missing. It's nice. Other people, there's a lot of different ways to block that off. And then there's also nope, not on yours, but on the later models, there's an extra pulley that you can also take off so it looks better. And there's an adjuster bracket that goes on the back of the water pump. And it's nice if that's out of the way, it just makes it clean. Now you can actually see your engine. You know, and it does
You have
take,
a video on this, don't you?
I can't tell you if I do or not, but I'll bet Marty can tell us in a little while. But I probably have one. Of course, if I showed it, then the federales would probably come grab me. But it's a pretty straightforward removal, and that's all you have to do, and it cleans it up so much, and it also saves about a horsepower. And that's what they say it takes to run that air pump, about a horsepower. So you get a little, I mean, not a whole horsepower back to the rear wheels because you're losing so much power by the time you get to the rear wheels. But you know, you're going to pick up another half a horsepower at the rear wheels by removing that. So it's almost everybody has their air pump off. So
Wow.
you can
What I'm going to do is I couldn't write fast enough, so I'll just have to look at this when you post it on your website and
okay.
write down the steps again.
Okay.
I think for the time being, I'm a little afraid of going off stock. That car has been so reliable. It's the most
Okay.
reliable little car I've ever owned. So I'm gonna have to give it a little thought on removing that air
Sure.
pump. You
Okay.
make it sound easy.
Okay.
Hey,
Thank
John,
you.
this is Rich. I have an add-on to this exact question. My $200 80 MGB, it runs beautiful. In fact, our autocross here, the 4 different drivers we took in the top 4 spots. I have to think someone's worked the motor because it's got to have more than 63 horsepower. But unlike the other gentleman, I stripped all the pollution gear and pulled the air conditioner out and put a set of FUs on it. But I'm getting that pop on deceleration every time, and I've adjusted the timing, and
It's
so that
often from an exhaust leak. So take a wad of wet rags, you know, in a 5-gallon pail, and put your hand on the exhaust while it's idling, or get someone else to, and then scoot underneath the car and just listen. And wherever it's leaking, you can hear it, because you know, the pressure's building there. Almost always it's from an exhaust leak. And on deceleration, you're drawing air into the exhaust from the outside and completing the combustion.
so I put those half washers on, because
Yeah.
the thickness of the inlet manifold and the exhaust manifold were not the same. I thought I had that good and tight.
I don't, the leak isn't there. You'd hear that. It would be very distinct underneath the bonnet, someplace underneath the car. This is my
Okay,
guess.
thank you.
Okay, David Halliday, you're up. But you're
Good.
not
Quick
unmuted. There we
one,
go.
John. You mentioned about the safety ridge on the edge of the newer wheels. The older wheels, the disc wheels, which are not going to leak air, should we be running tubes in those, or do you think that's a waste of time?
Waste of time. And the tubes perforate and they leak. So we had somebody on a couple of weeks ago that had, you know, had a leak, couldn't find the leak, and it turned out to be a rivet or a weld, you know, on the wheel itself.
Yep.
You know, pretty bizarre. That usually
Sure.
doesn't happen, but no, I wouldn't suggest running a tube inside the tire because all the tires are rough on the inside now, and they're not designed for
Yes.
tubes. Therefore, when you put a tube in, and it used to be that when you fitted the tube, you fit it with talcum powder. Well, in the United States, at least, you can't buy talcum powder anymore. So, because it's
Okay.
dangerous,
Cervical
Right.
cancer.
'cause it might have asbestos in it. So,
No, it's cervical cancer. That's the
yeah,
reason.
yeah. So I don't know exactly how. So anyway, so yeah, that was the lawsuit. So it's off the market. So you know, I use cornstarch now, but you know, and you need somebody that knows how to install it, which is any motorcycle shop. Any motorcycle shop, they're putting
Yeah.
tubes in tires all tubes and wheels all the time. So that's a good spot to have it done.
But really, for a magnet or an MGA or something, just
no, just
because
tubeless. Absolutely.
the old thing was a tube would actually help keep the tire on the rim if it ever
But
deflated.
but I haven't I just I haven't in all the time I've done this, I've never heard anybody of running their tire off their rim. Now, racing is altogether different. We get race car people. Well, that happens, once every 700 times. Okay, all right. But on the road, when you're driving on the motorway or the expressway or something, driving on a country road, it just doesn't happen. Tires are so
Yeah.
much nicer now than they used to be.
Sure. Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, Pete Kresge.
Yeah, John, I'm helping a person redo his 72 MGB, and he pulled all the seats out, and we ended up we're going to have to do the right floorboard. And as I got underneath there, removing the clamps for the wires and all that, and the tubes, I looked at it and I was going, "What the hell are these 6 wires underneath?" And I think you got on it about that system where the seatbelts had to be attached and all that.
Yes.
You were talking about the bypass. Do we just close that up by just taking the 2 wires and closing them up?
Usually it works, it defaults to working okay, but there's a unit at the upper right side behind the console, and it's got a plug, and it's got about 8 wires on it, 8 or 10 wires. And you find the white with red wire. That's the operational wire from the key switch, which goes hot when you turn it over to start. And then you find the yellow with a pinkish tracer. It's like they all kind of look like that. We'll go up to the ignition relay, which sits to the rear side of the fuse box. That's the one that sends the power down to the starter motor to make it work. And you're looking for the wire that plugs onto the Pectron unit that is exactly the wire that goes to the starter relay. And you take both those off the plug that goes into the Pectron unit, and you butt them together, and then it's a straight shot from the key switch to the starter relay. So
Yeah, I've noticed that on the wires, I was trying to look at the color code according to the color diagram, and I was going, okay, this color striping code is not in the diagram whatsoever. And you were talking about the pink portion, and I know the pink is not on there. Usually that's just a ballast in there for the British ballast is that pink wire. But I guess I have all these wires, so I don't even need to worry about those wires underneath. Just go ahead
no,
and mention.
no, and they plug. I think they plug. They might be part of the harness. You can wrap them up. I'm always hesitant to just nip the wires off. I
Right.
often coil them up and put a zip tie or two on them and put them underneath the carpet someplace so that the next guy, if he wants, can, whatever. So,
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
hey, you're very welcome. So next one up, Darren Chapman. So to unmute easily, you press the space bar, and then your computer stays unmuted, and you can talk to us. The other way is to laboriously go down to the bottom of your screen with your cursor and try to figure out what's going on while everyone's waiting. But here we go, Darren. I got Darren now. No,
Okay,
there we go.
there we
Okay.
go. Hi,
Yep.
hi,
Great.
John. Listen, I've got a 1980 and I just joined about maybe 15 minutes ago, so I don't know what was said earlier. I have, I want to take off all of the emission control,
Okay.
and I am replacing with dual H4S, HS4s, and new. Or not new, but
The exhaust.
exhaust as
Manifold.
well as intake and exhaust manifolds, etc.
All right. So if I were doing this, I would
Yep.
leave the two charcoal canisters in place. I'd leave the anti-run-on in place, leave all that in place, strip off the manifold, the Stromberg carburetor and the manifold, put on the new the replacement factory cast iron manifold because the cast iron manifold is the best exhaust you can get for getting the exhaust out of the engine. There's no such thing as a
Okay.
header, which is better. And I added a list. I added another thing to my how I hate um, uh, exhaust extractors, how I hate headers today. And that is that all headers are hot, unbelievably hot. All headers are extremely noisy. All headers leak, and at the junction of all the pipes, you can lose a screw or a little adjuster spring in there and you can't get it out. So all headers are headaches. Use the factory exhaust manifold and the
Okay.
whatever carburetors you choose to use, and then hook the vents from the float bowls over to the charcoal canister just the way that the Stromberg was done. You
Okay.
cannot have a low point in that system, except for the float bowls are the low point and the charcoal canister is the low point. So if there's any gasoline that should get into that tube, it's going to run back into the carburetor or into the charcoal canister. But if you have a low point, you can get some gasoline. Carburetors overflow. They all seem to want to do that from time to time. And if you pump some gas in there, then you can no longer get atmospheric pressure on top of the float bowls. The car runs crappy. So anyway, that's that. Then the front tappet inspection cover from the engine goes through the 12G 2134 plastic Y piece and is ventilated into the front of the front and the rear of the rear carburetor. If you don't have carburetors that are that new, then you want to put a Smith's PCV valve like you got it, like is in the picture from that constant contact that I sent yesterday. And then you hook up a choke cable. What year is your car?
80.
Okay, so you take the rheostat out of the dash, and
Yep.
there's a blanking plug up above that. You can cut a hole in the blanking plug and put the rheostat up there if you even want to reinstall it. The rheostats are already all burned up anyway. That hardly any of them work. And why would you ever want the dash lights, the gauge lights, any dimmer than they are now?
Yeah.
Anyway, then you've got a nice purchase point to put in a T-handle choke cable. That is so
Good.
nice to have there. And then you've got to get the air cleaners on there. And I just took some air cleaners off at MG today that were, they're real pretty. They're about that big around and they're about that thick. And the airflow characteristics are just in the toilet and they get dirty and they when they get dirty, then you're going to use more gasoline. So my suggestion is that they're $100 a piece is you buy the K&N conical filters. One goes on straight, one's offset. It'll clear the brake booster, and those breathe really well. So
Okay.
that's how you get out of that. And it makes a nice clean installation. It looks great, works great, and you still have all of your emission control system, all the evaporative loss control stuff in place. If you got more questions, you can call me and I can talk to you again about it because that's a big data dump all of a sudden.
That
It's like, wait a minute, what did he say? So yeah.
No, thank you. I will. Thanks, John.
Okay, you're welcome. Ian, you're up next.
Hey John, how you doing?
Great.
So I am curious about my, you remember I have 66 MGB,
Okay.
and it's still got the kind of factory original style with the mushroom PCV valve.
Yep.
And so that PCV valve, I'm almost 90% sure that it's burning up some oil or sending some oil to the void in the car because
Okay.
it's kind of been drinking some oil recently.
Okay.
Really, it has been for a while, but I've decided to kind of start addressing it now. And I've been told one thing that there's maybe an internal O-ring that could be slit and it's allowing oil to be burned or
Sure.
we lost
Ian,
some.
I've had to hit my mute all because there's some background. Ian, unmute yourself and keep going.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, 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 no. So
And
anyway, it's the diaphragm. The diaphragm's about that big around,
okay.
rubber diaphragm. They almost always fit. I did see one at Grant's house so many years ago that was too small, and because it had slipped out of place, this car left. It wasn't smoking; it was mosquito fogging. It was unbelievable how much oil got drawn through there. So you can block that off. Just put a hose on it and crimp the hose, put a bolt in it, and leave the hose that comes from the front tappet inspection cover open just underneath the car, or get 3 feet or 4 feet a half-inch heater hose and put it on and drape it over the top of the engine down by the starter motor or something or other. And then just go out and drive it for a while. And does oil consumption change? Yes or no. But usually just changing that diaphragm does it.
Okay, great.
But if there's too much blow by because the rings are faulty, then the only thing you can do at that point is just put a hose across the top of the engine. It vents what it vents, and you can't slow it down any more than that. I've seen people put uh, collection cans
Yes, I've seen
on,
some of those. Yeah.
and they're all stopgap measures. The bottom line is that you need the rings. So.
Okay. All right then. Well, I we'll see what we can do with that. I can't drive at 650 miles to Sandusky with burning oil, so
Well,
need to try and figure
remember,
that
you
out.
can buy a lot of oil for as much money as it costs to re-ring the engine, unless you're doing it yourself.
Yeah, I suppose
And
that's
I'm
true.
and I'm more than happy to tell you how to do that when the time comes.
Well, that may be a day where we'll have to have a call.
All right. Okay,
Thank
doke.
you, John.
Hey, you're very welcome. Jim K, you're up next.
Hey there, great, thanks. You may have covered this already when you were talking about the anti-run-on valve, I believe is what does it. But um, when I'm driving and I suddenly decelerate, like I get off the freeway,
What year?
76B,
Okay.
and I've been driving on the freeway and I just put it in neutral and I coast. And or I've been driving on the street and the RPMs are up, 3 grand plus, and I uh, pop it into neutral,
It
and
just kills.
no, it doesn't kill. It actually does the opposite. The RPMs stay up at around uh,
Okay.
1800
All right.
for about 20 seconds. Is that normal? Is that what the
No,
anti-run
no, no. That's the overrun valves. The
okay.
overrun valves in the throttle disc. So you still have a Weber on there? Sorry, a Stromberg.
Yeah.
Okay. So getting that thing off is a task. But once you get it off, you see there's a little spring-loaded valve, and it's got a button on one side and a spring on the other. And you get the thing out and train your propane torch on the button side and put some flux on the spring side, and then flow a bunch of solder in so it puddles a little bit so that that baby is soldered shut. Then that'll stop. The only other thing I can think of is that your throttle cable, it's a mechanical problem. And because you always approach all problems from the cheapest, easiest, simplest solution first, if you take your throttle cable and squeeze it just a little bit, it's got an arc in it, and you just squeeze it a little bit. If that changes the RPM just like instantly, it's too tight. When your car's idling and you feel down to the firewall on the outer sheath of the throttle cable and lift it up and down, you should have at least an eighth of an inch of free play there. If you have no free play, you've got to readjust your throttle cable. And that's so much easier than taking the carburetor off the car.
Yeah, yeah, I got good at it. You know, done it a million times.
Oh, geez.
Now, when you were describing the carburetor on what to do, so I don't have an automatic choke. I have a manual
It's okay.
choke.
It's all right.
I was trying to visualize where you were talking about again.
This is the
'Cause-
main throttle disc, the disc that's an inch and three quarters in diameter, the butterfly.
oh,
So,
yeah, the butterfly. Okay.
yep, that's it.
So, so then what do I seal again?
Okay, so you take a look at the butterfly. You've already seen there's a spring-loaded valve on the butterfly.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Okay, so you want to seal that. You want to seal that off. And I
Okay.
wouldn't use JB Weld. I'd use solder. So you jam the throttle disc open so it's horizontal and heat it from the underside with some heat. Put some flux and solder in on the top side so there's a little bubble of solder there, and wait for it to cool, and bingo, you're all set.
Okay. I remember addressing that in the past, and I can't remember what I did. I might have, which it's all moot now anyway, because I sent it off and had it professionally built because I just couldn't get the thing to work perfect. But I
Okay.
might have flipped the butterfly around to try and solve that problem so that it, didn't open the opposite way.
Okay. Right. I guess that I don't even know if that works. No, the cut on it shouldn't work at all. But anyway, that's the way that I'd solve it. And that's anytime we have a carburetor off the car, anytime anybody's car, unless they're like, it's got to be absolutely original. I want it to hang up like that. We always solder it shut. And then it feels like a 1967 MGB. You take your foot off the gas doing 60 miles an hour, and your chin goes forward and hits the steering wheel because the car starts to decelerate so fast. So, it's nice, and you get a lot of throttle, a lot better throttle response. Put your foot down, you're going to go as fast as you went in the beginning. Take your foot off, and it just slows down so fast. So makes it a lot easier to drive as a sports car.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Alan Atwood, what's up?
Appreciate your help, John. It's kind of ironic. You were just talking to Ian, and he is actually in the same club that I'm in.
Oh, all
And
right.
he had a PVC question, and I have a PVC question.
Okay.
I have a 67 GT that runs perfectly. I've had it about a year, and I bought a PVC valve to put on it because the tap inspection covered hose just drains out to the outside. So I was thinking of putting a PVC valve on it, which I bought a new one. And I'm kind of terrified because the engine's running perfectly. And I hate to mess with my intake system by putting the
Well,
PVC valve on.
that's what's supposed to be there,
Yeah, right.
and the needles in the carburetors are designed to enrich in the mixture a tiny little bit to account for the amount of air that's coming through that PCV valve.
Okay.
So theoretically, nothing should change.
Okay.
So, do you still have the original fitting in the manifold that?
Well, the original fitting, of course, was a plug in there, and somebody had put some kind of thread locker in there, and I had to heat it up with a torch, and I got it out.
Okay.
And I put a new gasket on it so that it would run without the PVC valve like it was before. So I think I can put the PVC valve on.
Right. It just takes a short piece of half-inch heater hose,
Uh-huh.
with a clamp around top and
Right.
bottom. But then
Right.
but then it wiggles, and so there's a strap. There's a
Yeah.
strap that holds it in place. And if you can't buy that strap, you can get the strap that holds the exhaust from the gearbox to the engine. That's the strap about that long, and it's already got one hole's at least in the right place, and then you got to bend it and so forth. And look at that picture from that constant contact picture that I sent out yesterday, and you can see how that was affixed to the intake manifold.
Yeah, I
So
found a piece of metal with two holes in it and I've bent it and twisted it. I think I can make it work.
yeah, okay,
Yeah,
just to
that'll be
make it
great.
a little more rigid. That's all.
Yeah,
And you want it to sit as low as you can because you obviously don't want it to hit the bonnet.
right. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Hey, you're very welcome. Steve Shupak, you're back up.
Yeah, John, are you answering non-modification questions like clutches and stuff for 59As?
Sure, I'm
Okay.
game.
Okay, good. Thanks. Um, Neighbor's car around the block has been sitting so long, all he had was a varnish in the tank. Pulled the tank, got it running, it's up and running now. How do I tell the difference now between between air in the clutch line, the bad slave cylinder, or something? Because as soon as we try to take our foot off or release it off the floor, it's instantly in gear. And then at times, sometimes it will shift, sometimes it just grinds. Um,
Okay, so there are four parts of the well, not the mechanical part of the clutch, but in the hydraulics, there are four parts of the hydraulic system: the
yep,
master cylinder,
yep,
the steel tube that goes down to the rubber hose, and the slave.
yep.
If the slave leaks, it's bad. If the slave is bad, it leaks. So if it's not leaking, it's not bad. The slave hose, the inside diameter will collapse. So you take your foot off the gas, and it's like, it's like you're waiting to go, and it goes you're in gear. It's not instant, and plus, it's often associated with a sound, is that fluid is rushing through a little tiny orifice on the inside of the hose. That's not your problem. The steel lines hardly ever go bad.
Right.
So that leaves the master cylinder. I would rebuild the master cylinder and you can rebuild it in place. You can take it out, but what a bugger.
Is it worse than
Yes.
on my B?
This is the A, right?
Yeah, this is a neighbor.
You
This
do
is a
it,
neighbor's A.
it's a bugger to do. It really is, but you're going to rebuild both of them. So take the pedal push rods out, and then take the front bolt out of the master cylinder, tip the master cylinder up, get a dingleberry brush. It's called a glaze
Yeah,
breaker.
yeah.
Those are 3/4 inch bores. Is it a drum or a disc drum?
I don't know. We never got around to look.
Is it a
59.
1500 probably?
Oh yeah, I think yeah,
Yeah,
1500.
then that's drum. So those cylinders are 3/4 of an inch. So you can go on Amazon and buy glaze breaker. Once you see it, you go, "Oh, I get it. Dingleberry brush looks like one," um, and um, and you can use a drill and clean those out, and then a rag and get it as clean as you can. Put new rubbers on it. Put it back together. If the bottom of the bore is all rusty and pitted, the new rubbers aren't going to work for very long, but you're already into it, so you might as well do it, and then order another one. But I'm send me a note, and I'll send you a picture of my special wrench to tighten up the clutch hose on the back. It's just a horror to do in place. Oh my gosh. So anyway, you can do this. I mean, to
Uh,
change the master cylinder.
uh,
So you can rebuild it in place so much more easily. The only problem is you're dealing with brake fluid and it's going to spatter around. It's going to eat up the paint. It's just the way, just be careful.
oh, and the guy just had his whole garage floor epoxy coated, so this guy dripping oil and stuff. Yeah, he's not into that.
He's got the wrong car for that floor. So tell him he can get great big pizza pans and
Yeah,
put kitty litter in them. That's one way. You can put down cardboard, but the oil and the brake fluid stuff like that
yeah.
soaks through the cardboard for sure.
John, I got to tell you, you're just a ray of sunshine on this deal.
No,
Oh,
it's so easy. It just rebuild in place. It's straightforward.
I don't know. I replaced the master cylinder on my B, and that was a major pain in the ass.
Well, it's just like
Is
that
it
on
worse,
the
better or
A.
worse?
On the
Oh,
A, except that you can't get a wrench on the back of it to get the lines tight. It's,
oh.
I mean, you can, but it's you know, you're going to go through a whole period of time where you just it's rebuild it first. Try
I'm
it.
gonna. Well, first I'm gonna go look at the slave and see if that's leaking. That might be
Well, if it's
my
leaking,
first.
you're going to run out of fluid, right? You're going to have a fluid
Uh,
loss.
okay.
And
Yeah,
in the case of the slave, you can
and
really make a case that you should buy a new one. But if you're going to, and you also make the case that if you're going to do anything, you do everything. So that is rebuild the master, replace the hose, put a new slave on it. So
okay. Okay, so the good news is it doesn't sound like it's the clutch itself. This
no,
is all engagement.
yeah,
That's a well, that means at least the engine can stay in place.
at least that, yeah, a ray of
Okay,
sunshine.
okay, now you are a ray of sunshine.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, John.
All right, you're welcome.
Isopropyl alcohol is good for cleaning up brake fluid.
Isopropyl, okay,
For cleaning up brake fluid.
okay, thank
Hey,
you.
hey, John, this is Tom Gunderson. How
Yes,
are you?
sir. Great.
Since you were talking about the slave, I had asked a question a couple of Zooms back about that whooshing sound.
Yes.
Okay, and you said replace that hose. Well, I haven't really addressed it, but my question is that hose the same hose that is used in the brake
No,
to the front wheels?
no,
Okay,
no.
because I've got an extra one, and I never have tried to figure out if it was the same or not.
It's a bugger to change that hose. You've got to have
Oh, I understand.
okay, right.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, John.
Hey, great. I'm gonna use my mute all button here and just blank out. We got some noise in the background. So I don't have any hands up right now. So I want to go over to the chat section right now and just see what's going on here. So
Hey, John,
Mark, yes. Yeah.
can I ask you one quick
Oh,
question?
absolutely.
I didn't know how to put my hand up, so
That's okay. I understand.
um, I have an MGA, a 1600 converted with an 1800 engine, but it has a 1600 transmission in it. And I think that the nylon gear that runs the speedometer has run its course.
Oh,
And I'm trying to get there's like a 29 millimeter nut that contains all that stuff underneath the car.
the
And
one and 1/8 inch, I
yeah,
think.
1 1/8 inch, right?
So
And
what
I'm trying
I've
to get it
done,
off, but
what
it's
I've
impossible
done,
to get off.
on the bottom of all your half-inch drive sockets, it rolls. It's the sides don't come down right to the end. There's a roll there, and that roll is so that you can't get a hold of that nut. So take your socket and put it on your belt sander along with a bucket of water and sand it until that roll is all gone and all you have is a sharp edge. And then you put it on there and it'll come off.
Yeah, because that nut is
Yeah,
really, really tiny,
it's real. Well,
and you
it's
can't get a
real.
purchase on it.
You can if you change your 1 1/8. Think it's 1 1/8. It's probably a British size. Like
29 millimeters,
okay, all right.
1 1/8. Yeah,
I don't have my book with me right now to tell you if that's closer to 1 1/8 or 9/16 BSF or something. But
yeah, but
it's
1 1/8.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
grind it down.
Grind it down until it's absolutely flat on the bottom and you put it on there and it'll come right off.
Great,
And
thanks.
make sure it's a 6-point socket, not a 12-point.
Thank you. So
Got it.
now you're at the hardware store reaching in the bucket that says sockets mechanics quality 129 each. Yeah. But yeah, but a 6-pointer. Thank you. Thanks.
All
Very
right.
kind. Thanks. Okay, well, I'm going to work through Mike Baldwin raised his hand. Mike, how are you doing tonight?
So we hit unmute.
there,
Sorry. So
there we
we hit
go.
unmute. A couple of things. One gentleman while I was talking about ethanol or ethanol fuel free and free fuel and having some issues with boiling. Between distillers and having moonshiners in my family history, alcohol boils around 173. So if he had a 180 under the hood, that would explain the alcohol boiling out. Secondly, I had a epoxy floor put down in 2008 in my garage. Heavy use. And that was done professionally where they come in and put the epoxy and put the little grit in it to make it, sparkling.
Right.
And then they came back the next day and put a clear coat on it. It's had brake fluid, oil, and everything in the world on it. You can't get a more indestructible floor than an epoxy floor done right. Brake fluid, impervious to it, oil, spray down with a little carb cleaner, wipe it up, you're good to go.
I appreciate that, Mike, but this guy is so anal that he couldn't handle one drop of the varnish that came out of the tank in the garage. He said it made him nauseous for a week.
In that particular case, it's not the floor. He's got a problem. He needs to buy a new car and not have old cars. Just saying.
100%, 100%, sir.
Thank you, brother. Wouldn't try to pick a fight. Thank you. Bye.
So, thanks. Let's see. I don't know why I'm having just a minute here. Here we go. David Basili, have the last two Zoom sessions been loaded into the library? No, not yet. But I understand they're going to be up real fast. Oh, that's what Marty says. So, John, when are you coming to the West Coast? I have no plans. I want to get to the East Coast, and I'm having just a hard time getting anywhere right now. But anyway, I have no plans coming to the West Coast. But if someone officially invites me to like GOF West next year, then I can rationalize coming out and staying an extra amount of time. So Jerry Stewart says MGB air cleaners. Found some from Rock Auto for $646 each US. That's a deal. And Bill Nyland says here we go. I just connected a new generator in my 1956 MGA. It charged according to the ignition light, but the next day the battery was dead. Could that be because I did not ground the new engine I installed? He means the new generator that he installed. So what I would do, is do the cheapest, simplest, easiest stuff first. So Bill, I would take a screwdriver or a piece of wire or a paper clip and jump between A and F on the control box. The key doesn't have to be on, nothing, just spark. And now that has polarized the generator is going to make electricity in conformance with your car. So then when you start the car up and the ignition light goes out, which indicates that it's charging, the next step, this is on a generator car, not an alternator car, is to turn the headlights on, disconnect the battery, to crank it up to 1500 RPM or something with your idle screws. And at 1500 RPM, with the battery disconnected, the headlights on, the car should remain running and the headlights should remain glowing. They'll flicker a little bit, but because that's one of the functions of the battery is to act like a ballast in the voltage department there to hold the voltage nice and steady. But that would be my guess. All right, so Tom C, fuel tanks changed, vented versus non-vented. Included a vapor separator connected to the charcoal canister. So Tom C, what are we talking about here? There's not enough words here in this. Is Tom C still on here? About the fuel tank changes. So the easiest thing to do when you're putting your car back together is use the tank that's supposed to be there, because the ventilated tank, ventilated tank has an extra little port on the top of it, which has to have a hole in the bottom of the trunk to come through. On the other hand, if you use a um, a non-vented tank in a ventilated system and put the original fuel cap on it, when the fuel pump starts to draw the fuel out of the tank, atmospheric pressure will push up on the bottom of the tank and literally collapse the tank. It's anyway, so you should stay with what you're doing. Tony Shoviak, do you have a part number for that Napa air filter? Yes, I do, but it's on an invoice, and I will do my best, Tony, to send that to you. Oh, Andy Sloman already has it here. I believe it's 2147. Bought two and got a total of four. Yep, okay. Here we go. John says shoulder belt started in 1968 on the MGB. I was pretty sure of that, but now that we got two people voting this way, and that's that strap that went, of course, across your shoulder and then snapped into a bolt on the rear cowl, just to the rear of the cockpit. iPad 5 says, where can I find instructions on how to install a 3-point seat belt? I have a 67 MGB with lap belts. A 67B already has some fixtures. I don't know where, first of all, I don't know where to find the instructions, but you already have some nuts on the back, on the wheel arches on the 67. I'm sure they're there to accept the over the shoulder seat belt. So that's where you would anchor it. How to anchor it, I'm not quite so sure. So iPad 5, I don't have an easy explanation. You're going to have to do some. You never have to reinvent the wheel. People have already done this stuff. So
John,
yes.
this is Tony. I've got
Yeah.
a 66, well, 67, but it's a 66. You can buy a bracket from, I think it's MG Owners Club.
Okay.
That you can mount the retractable unit onto, and then
Okay.
attach it to the wheel arch.
Okay. All right. MG Owners Club, that's out of England.
Right.
But everybody's got a website and all this stuff's available. So thank you, Tony.
And you might be able to get it. Might be able to get it at Moss. I do have one question about the
Yes.
gentleman was talking about the epoxy floor. I put a clear coating on mine, on the new floor I got. The problem I had was in the springtime, the floor was still cold. When it was raining, when it was damp outside, I got a lot of moisture buildup on the floor. Puddles of water. I mean, you walk through it, you could see where the water was. It's gone now because the floor is warmed up. Do you have any suggestions on how to take care of that?
A box fan in the corner, just running constantly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
John.
All right.
John.
Yes.
Back on the subject of seatbelt anchorage.
Yes, sir.
I have a 65 MGB, and the over-the-shoulder belt anchor is, as you say, it's mounted on the wheel arch, but the actual bolt system is a dual bolt, a dual stud onto the arch. It's not a single one.
Correct.
And the idea of that's to distribute the load into the wheel arch, but it makes it difficult for trying to find a sash system with a bracket with a double hole bolt with a double hole mounting.
Yes, I understand that would be so. Tony says maybe there's something available from the Owners Club. I don't like retractable seat belts. I like fixed belts myself. I like to be snug as a bug in a rug. When I'm sitting in my seat, I like to be strapped in. So I don't like the retractable belts, and it's only I drive my car. I just talked to a guy today who's 6'2" and his wife is 5'1", and they have two MGs. And it's like, oh my gosh, they can't switch cars. You know, one set up for one of them and the other set up for the other. But the fixed belt is a whole lot nicer. And there's always a way. There's always a way to show it to someone who's handy and have them take a piece of metal and bend it, maybe put some gussets in it, drill some holes, paint it black, make it look nice to accept the that over the shoulder leg of the seat belt. But yeah, those are 7/16 studs, and they got those real pretty chrome. They got the cap screws on them, the dome nuts on them.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, just that this starts to contradict regulation requirements where one is supposed to certify the integrity of the system. And because my car in 65 came without seatbelts, I'm not subject in Australia to the legislation requirements of having to install them. But I would prefer to have a system which was acceptable rather than no system.
Yeah, you want cross the shoulder belts for sure. For sure. It's so safe. It's so safe. Lap belts are, I guess those are okay, but are they better? The cross the shoulder, it's when your head smashes into the top of the steering wheel, you know. Although in one case, it happened at a NAMGAR event 20 years ago. And NAMGAR is North American MGA register. Two guys were coming back from an event, and a F-150 truck pulled right out in front of them. They T-boned it. Truck probably drove away. The whole front of the car was smashed up. Both the guys put their faces into the dash. And Mike didn't think he was hurt very badly. And they said, well, we want to take an MRI and just make sure that, there's no damage and stuff like that. They took an MRI and they found a tumor in his nose that they said, my God, if this had gone on for another couple of months, we might not have been able to save your life. So it was putting his head into the dash that saved his life. That's the only the only example I've got on the opposite side of that. So there must be there in the 1967 driver's handbook. There's got to be pictures of that seat belt, and certainly in the parts book, there's some pictures of the seat belts and the brackets that go with it. And so if iPad 5 is still around, or you too, Peter, send me an email, and I'll see what I can find picture wise. But then also check with the MG Owners Club in Cambridge, in Swayze, Cambridgeshire, and see what they might have.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Hey, thank you. Okay. Ms. Surley says anti-run-on for the MGA early MGB is to shut the ignition off and immediately put the throttle to the floor. This creates a heavy air-fuel mixture that will not support combustion, and the motor shuts off with no run-on. All right, that's a possibility. I do the opposite, and I let it sit for a moment, turn the key off, and dump the clutch. So it's I'm not sure. Is that good for the clutch? Certainly not. But it's a whole lot better than having the engine bounce around and run backwards and so forth for a while. But anyway, that's interesting. Let's see. Tom Gunderson, can you talk about fire extinguishers and placement in an MGA? Don't put it in the trunk, in the boot. Don't put it in the boot where you can't get to it. Put it over by the passenger side. I've seen them lying horizontally on their side immediately in front of the seat where your legs don't touch it. That it's a handy place to have. It might be handy to have one next to your left leg, but it'll always be in the way. But if it's in the passenger way, who cares? There might be some place to install it. I don't carry one. There might be, I should. There might be a way to attach it to the top of the battery cover, with some kind of bracket so you could get to it right away. That's about all I can think of, Tom. On an MGB, there's more leg room. The whole car is 4 inches wider. But that's a good point.
What about what about those different type of fire extinguishers that are almost like in a tall paint can? They're good for all kinds of fires.
Yeah, well, you want you want one that's going to put the fire out, and you want a quantity of compressed something. They used to use there used to be halon. You can't use those because that wrecks the troposphere. And you don't want an ABC, which has got yellow shit that comes out of
Yeah.
the end of it. I mean, that puts the fire out, but oh my God, you got to get that stuff off immediately because it's so acidic, it'll burn a hole in the paint.
Well, the type of extinguisher I'm talking about is fairly inexpensive, but it doesn't leave a lot of bad residue either.
Good.
And then I saw somebody over the weekend, and just like you said, he had a halon mounted right in front of his passenger seat.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, man.
Hey, you're welcome. And Mark B reminds us that ethanol boils at 173.3. So for our friends in all other countries except Burma and Liberia, that's minus 32 times 5 divided by 9. And then we come up with that same figure in Celsius. Okay. And Rich Caldwell says, I have an add-on question to this pop question. You still on, Rich? He may have already gone. So here, Michael Bertinoli says a Hillman 3981 716 20 by half inch socket set screw is available on Amazon. That's nice because otherwise you got to go to McMaster Car or something like that and buy a pack of 100 of them. I do that because I need a pack of 100, but the rest of them, that's all right. Marty has got some notes here about thank yous. Here's the Bay Area, California show. Chuck Linick. Chuck, how you doing? Is it worthy to install a radiator overflow tank on an early Mark 1 MGB? No, no. I frequently get an antifreeze discharge, of course, out the overflow down to the ground. But remember that header tank is about that tall, and the fluid's supposed to be in there so that no matter how hot it gets, it doesn't come out the top. If you keep topping it up, it's going to keep pissing out. But if you just let it find its own level, it should be okay. There's no problem putting that tank on there, but then you got to use a blanking cap on the radiator so that any fluid, the ones that come out or into the radiator, depending on whether it's getting hotter or colder, can move freely, which you can't do through a normal radiator cap in overflow. So you just got a blanking plate like an MGC or an Austin America. How often does that come up in conversation? So.
Okay, so it finds its happy medium.
All right. Now I've got Jim says I've got a Gatorade bottle for that. That's good.
Excellent.
So Bill Mills says I've got an early 74 BGT with the Sabrina bumpers. I wasn't sure if you covered them in the crash bumper regs. I did not. I forgot all about them. So 1974 is the most unusual year in that we've got 3 different types of bumpers. We've got chrome bumpers from September of 73 through December of 73, still the 74 model year. Then beginning in January of 74, we've got the Sabrina or the Dolly Parton overriders. And those last until the end of August. And then at the beginning of September, we get the rubber bumpers. So 1974 is the longest production year. And we've got 3 different types of bumpers on there, but I forgot all about the Sabrina bumpers. So those are kind of cool. I mean, you can't take them off and put chrome bumpers in their place because of the horizontal spacing. The normal chrome overriders look real stupid on there. Plus, there's something about getting to the gas cap or something rather in the back. But anyway, no, I forgot all about the Sabrina bumpers.
I just wasn't sure if you were going to tell them why they called them Sabrina bumpers.
If you go on when you're done here, tell your wife or your girlfriend you're doing what do they say? Research. You're doing research and look up Sabrina British model, and you'll know exactly when you see a picture of her why they call them Sabrina overriders.
I thought they looked pretty good.
So Brad Schwartz says on his MGA, I put a fire extinguisher in the passenger door pocket. Well, duh. Yeah, of course. Of course. That's a wonder. That's well, then he corrects and says, no, it's a driver's door pocket. But anyway, yeah, what a wonderful idea. Yep. So here and Kurt Bailey says Snap-on Tools is a significant discount. And so I don't maybe he's a salesman for this company. I don't know, but he's got a link here on how to get to Snap-on Tools at a significant discount.
Yeah, that's actually Caterpillar. I don't work for them, but the Caterpillar company,
Okay.
their tools are made by Snap-on, but they're about 80% cheaper. So if you're
And-
looking for tools, you can go if you have a cat, and most places have a cat dealership nearby. You got to pick them up at the dealership, but you can just order through the Caterpillar company, and they are U.S. made high
Yeah.
quality Snap-on tools, but about
So
80% off.
the step down on Snap-on is Blue Point, right? That's their second brand, right? That's the same tool, just doesn't carry the same guarantee or something.
Yeah, and I've just I haven't actually taken advantage of this, but I've known people who have, and they're very pleased with their purchase. So,
Of all the tools that you might ever purchase, I mean, I was using Snap-on tools today. They're so nice, but you can get by with the cheesy Harbor Freight deep socket set because how often are you using it? But the ratchet is what you want. Of course, that's the expensive part. That it's got about 200 clicks per 360 degrees, whereas the cheap ratchet's got like 16 clicks for 360 degrees. It gives you so much better feel. But anyway, thank you very kindly. Marty's.
Hey, John.
Yes, Bill.
This is Bill Thornton. I don't know if you know or not, but there's a couple of people been with their hands up for a while.
Oh no, I
particularly
didn't
Lucas
see. Oh,
Chris,
thank
so-
you. Thank you. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very kindly. That's very kind. So we're going to take Lucas first. I didn't see the hands up. My whole focus was on the chat section. Lucas, what's
Well,
up?
yeah, thanks, Bill and John. Appreciate it.
Okay.
I've got a 71B, and I have this acceleration problem when it's cold that's sort of been dogging me. So when it first starts, like off idle, stepping on the gas, it really seems lean and wants to die. And it goes away if you're driving it for 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
Seems especially bad like on colder days or maybe even wetter days. Hard to tell. And yeah, so it just really struggles like getting from idle up to about 2000 RPM with or without load.
What about with the
So
choke? You got the choke out?
yeah, so I've got the choke out to advance the idle cams, but not to drop the jets. Like I
Drop the
drop the
jets.
jets. Okay. Is
Drop,
that
drop the jets. That you've got you're just what you're describing to me is a lean condition,
Mhm.
and that goes away after if you got a hot enough thermostat in there. You should be all set after 3 minutes or 3 miles.
Okay,
But
so I just gotta adjust, the two
Just-
stages on the choke to
Yeah.
drop those jets a
Yep.
bit lower.
Till it runs the best. So it runs the
Okay.
best. And if you're having trouble accelerating, pull the choke out just a little further, a little farther. The other thing, just another thing, is to use 90 weight gear oil in the carburetors.
Yeah. Okay, I've tried that.
Okay.
I've tried the different, like rebuilt the distributor, rebuilt the carbs,
Yeah. Pull
sort
the
of gone through the whole ignition system.
pull
Okay,
pull the choke out more. I think
awesome.
think that'll help.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. and Bob Kuhn, who says, join NAMGAR.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to leave that up because I am the new membership chair for NAMGAR.
All right.
Yeah. And I just kind of wanted to let everybody know that if they have any questions about that, they can get a hold of me at membershipchair@namgar.com.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
all the clubs. There's a Triple M, there's a T-type, there's an MGA, there's an MGB, and there's an MGC club. It's too bad we're all factionalized along model lines. But since it's not one big club, each club is campaigning for your membership, and there is power in numbers, and there are efficiencies in scale. And the club needs your $25 a year, whatever it is. And you get a nice magazine, and you need them because you get in a jam, and there's technical assistance, there's camaraderie, there's fellowship. It's a real deal. So I joined NAMGAR myself. I'm number 321. Actually, my car is 321. Every other club numbers the person when they come in, but NAMGAR numbers the car. But I haven't changed haven't changed cars. So I've been a member since 1976. So I've been a pretty in it for a long time. And NAMGAR is a nice club. A lot of really nice people. As is the B club and the T club and so forth. So, but if you got a T and an A and a B, then now you're looking at 3 memberships. It's like, well, now what are you going to do? You're gonna join? You got MGC. So you're gonna join the MGC AMCRA?
Join all 4. It's cheap.
I'm a member of all 4. Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely, all 5. And then the MG Owners Club and the MG Car Club too,
That's true.
Yep. So
yeah, I've only got the B, but once I get a little bit more disposable income, I hope to join the rest of them.
Yeah,
I hope to have at least one of each every day. I'd like to have an A, a TD, a TF, TC.
All right, so come to Sandusky. You said you were concerned about blowing through too much oil on your way.
Yeah.
But Sandusky is it. I mean, this is a repop of the first event that we did in 1996. The MG Car Club wanted to re-exert some influence, something or other, in the early 90s, and so they lied to us and said that they were going to be out there to help us and everything. And then they sent a guy over to the United States, bought him a car, and he started going from club to club to try to get the clubs to directly join the MG Car Club and eschew the North American registers, the B register and the A register. So right away we saw it as the English trampling on our rights. And according to rumor, there were actually tea bags that were sent to the MG Car Club headquarters. I don't know if that really happened or not.
Wow, that's quite the rivalry.
Hey. So as a result of all the clubs who, I mean, back in the day, you saw the signs that said, friends don't let friends drive Triumphs." It was even more intense, and it was like, I don't know, I wouldn't join I wouldn't own an MGA. I'm an MGB guy. Well, now you go to the meetings and there's Triumphs there. There's a guy with a Triumph Stag. There's a guy with a Sunbeam Alpine, and a bunch of Miatas. So you don't want to throw out anybody. Anyway, as a result of all that happening in about 1992, the clubs all got together and everything. And it was like, well, let's have a giant meet. They never had a meet all together at the same time. And we were all in Atlanta, all the people from all the clubs were in Atlanta. And we decided that we would have this all register meet and decided on Indianapolis. So our first all-register meet was Indianapolis, 1996, and we had who knows how many cars, 1,300. You lose track.
That's amazing to me.
It was
I can't even imagine that
It
today,
was
I guess.
huge, and we got to drive on the track. It was hot. It was as hot as any summer sun, dry, hot. It was awful, awful. The sun beating down on us. Plus, that was also the summer that I was diagnosed with a with a brain tumor. So although I
Gosh.
was chairman of the event, I wasn't as hands-on as I might have been otherwise. But everybody kicked in and everybody helped out. And so we've had a meet every 5 years. All the clubs have come together for every 5 years after that. And they've been in Eastern Tennessee, Reno, Nevada. We were going to have one in Atlanta in 1996 and
It was in
2001. We were going to have in Atlanta, and that didn't work out. And so they decided to have it in Minneapolis, St. Paul, which was equidistantly distant for everybody who came there. It was way in the middle of nowhere. And we had one in Louisville, and then we had one right at the end of COVID in New Jersey. So this is in Ohio. It's the mid part of the country. It's a really nice venue, and it behooves everyone who's still on the call. We have 91. We're getting down there. This because it's 9:08. Behooves everyone to plan to come along to Sandusky.
Yeah. Well, I like the Ohio as a location. Yeah, it's 650 miles from me, but that's doable. And it's nice. I mean, Ohio as well. Tom Metcalf's in Ohio, and he does the great safety fast
Yep.
restorations out
Yep.
there. And there's a lot of MG influence in Ohio. So
Well, Ohio was one of the last states to be settled before the planners got there first. So a lot of the roads follow natural boundaries, ridges and valleys. And by the time they got to Michigan, the guys already had the map and snapped it out straight and cut swaths through the brush and over the swamps and through the mountains. And every street in every road in Michigan is a straight line. Not everyone, but very unlike Ohio. And also the seven state distributor for BMC was Falvey out of Detroit, and they supplied about 7 states. This is before British Leyland got going. So this is up through 1968. And they must have had some kick-ass salesmen that got to Ohio because every little town in Ohio had an MG dealer. So it's my unproven, maybe I should go ahead and prove this and get my doctoral thesis on this, that the incidence of MG ownership is higher per capita in Ohio than any other state. Now, New York, California, they got more people. They got more MGs, of course, but per capita, I would put it to Ohio. But I'm chatting on here, Mike Bertinelli. You've got a note. You got your hand up, Mike Bertinelli.
Yeah. I just got off mute, John.
Okay.
As we've been sitting here listening to your show and everything, I'm in the middle of doing a Zenith carburetor, and it's been kicking my rear end big time. But I rebuilt the car, but I didn't pull out and replace the O-rings on each side of the butterfly valve. So that's in the middle of what I'm doing. And the release thing that's on the butterfly valve, you were talking about soldering it in place.
Yes.
And I know that I've read on the HS carbs and other carbs that this butterfly is supposed to be in there a particular way because there's an actual beveled edge on this butterfly.
Yeah, so you can't get that wrong.
Apparently you on this carburetor, I just
Okay.
looked at it. They had it in backwards.
So the button goes towards the engine, the spring goes towards the air cleaner.
Right, exactly. Because I've got another one sitting right here, but just double checking that that's what this is
Yes,
the way
sir.
it's supposed to be.
Yep. Make sure make sure before you tighten up those screws that hold the throttle disc into the throttle shaft. Before you do that, back off all the screws and let that thing snap shut. Snap, snap to center it. Crack
Yeah.
the screws, and then once the screws are, once you're sure it's centered, then tighten up those screws. And then what I do is take a big pair of vice grips and get it in, just squeeze the screw from the head to the thread with a pair of vice grips, so it buggers up the end of this, and it buggers up the end of the screw, so the screw can't unscrew during operation.
Right. So it can't back out and
Right.
cause major issues.
Yeah. Yep. Mainly the throttle disc sticks open. I mean, the screw goes through the cylinder so fast and out the exhaust. It's not usually, that's not a problem. You can argue it makes some marks on top of the piston, but for the couple of times it goes up and down in there before it gets swept out with the exhaust. But the
Right.
throttle disc will end up jamming, and the former guy who said that his throttle was hanging up at 1800. Well, it was going to hang up at 5000. It makes the car totally undrivable. Yeah.
Yeah. Having difficulty getting the part on the no, never mind. I see it. Never mind.
Okay.
That's not supposed to
I've
come
got
off.
I've got a bunch of YouTube videos up about rebuilding the Stromberg carburetor, and I've written a lot about it too. So you can call me tomorrow, or you can email, and I'll try to get you directed to wherever you need to be.
Right. All right. Well,
All right.
just one last thing I'm going to try with it, and then after that, I'm throwing it in the trash and going with a Weber.
No. Webers are good for grilling, so no, you can
That's a good one.
you can make that work. All right, well, we're at 9:14. We're done with our official program. Doug Clark, are you on tonight? Where's Doug?
Yeah, John. Yeah,
Hey.
John. Hi.
All right. So I've got some show and tell stuff tonight.
Good.
So instead of hats, because we did hats for 3 years, and so I thought I'd try something else.
John, I've got 3 years worth more of them, so.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I thought I would show tonight. I don't know if anybody remembers COVID, but here is an MG mask. Okay, so here's an MG COVID mask. It's a guaranteed N95 mask. And not only do I have that, I have one in a sealed container. So this has got to be worth something, right? So that's one little bit of MG stuff. So here is a hubcap. Here's a hubcap from an MGF. Okay, and the note on it says this hubcap is from the MGF displayed in Toronto in 1993, the first first MGF I ever sat in, and it was given to me as a Christmas gift in 2001 by a customer of mine who worked for Rover, because they had this MGF. They said, "Oh, it's come to Canada for colonial testing." And they were going to put it in an ice box and get it hot and get it cold and see if it would hold up to for import into the United States. And I said, "What are you going to do with it afterwards?" They said, "Oh, we're going to crush it." I said, "Crush it? Oh, Mr. Big here, I'll buy it." "Oh, my dear boy, we couldn't sell it to you. What would happen if you had a warranty claim?" I said, "I'll sign off on the warranty claim." "Well, what would happen if you sold it to somebody and they made a..." Anyway, they crushed it. This is all that's left of the original of the MGF. Yes.
Yes.
And then, just a minute, I've got one more handy little thing. Look at this. Look at this. This is a King Dick wrench that says on one side, on this side, it says, you can't read it up here, but it says Abingdon on the top. So this is a King Dick MG, a very, very fine, pretty thick little wrench. So those are my MG things for tonight.